এই শালিনী স্ক্রিন শেয়ার করে দিয়েছেন না?
সব ভিডিওটি তো আপলোড করে দেওয়া আছে তো। হ্যাঁ, শাইলি ফার্স্টেই তো ওনার টক ওই তো
A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Our program will begin shortly. May I request you to kindly take your seats and please keep your mobile phones in silent mode. For those who have joined us online, a warm welcome. Live streaming has already been started of this program in the YouTube channel. Thank you. Respected Director, distinguished panelists, esteemed faculty, scholars, students, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you. To begin our program this afternoon, may I invite the members of the ISI Club to present the opening song.
সংসারে দুঃখ আঘাত তোমার প্রাণে বিনা ঝংকারে, এই অকুল সংসারে দুঃখ আঘাত তোমার প্রাণে বিনা ঝংকারে, ঘোর বিপদ মাঝে কোন জননীর মুখের হাসি দেখিয়া হাসো, ঘোর বিপদ মাঝে কোন জননীর মুখের হাসি দেখিয়া হাসো, কোন আলোতে প্রাণের প্রদীপ জ্বালিয়ে তুমি ধরায় আসো। তুমি কাহার সন্ধানে সকল সুখে আগুন জেলে বেড়াও কে জানে, তুমি কাহার সন্ধানে সকল সুখে আগুন জেলে বেড়াও কে জানে, এমন ব্যাকুল করে কে তোমারে কাঁদায় যারে ভালোবাসো, এমন ব্যাকুল করে কে তোমারে কাঁদায় যারে ভালোবাসো, কোন আলোতে প্রাণের প্রদীপ জ্বালিয়ে তুমি ধরায় আসো। তোমার ভাবনা কিছু নাই, কে যে তোমার সাথে তুমি মরণ ভুলে কোন অনন্ত প্রাণ সাগরে আনন্দে ভাসো, কোন আলোতে প্রাণের প্রদীপ জ্বালিয়ে তুমি ধরায় আসো, কোন আলোতে প্রাণের প্রদীপ জ্বালিয়ে তুমি ধরায় আসো।
Thank you to all the participants of ISI Club. Through the Indian Heritage Series, this institute has set itself a simple but far-reaching task to revisit India's intellectual inheritance, not as nostalgia but as self-knowledge, in the conviction that a nation which forgets its intellectual ancestry will always be uncertain of its intellectual future. Today, we turn to a figure who stands exactly where that inheritance meets our modern scientific life. Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy, born on the 2nd of August, 1861. We meet, therefore, almost on the eve of his 165th birth anniversary. He belonged to that remarkable generation we now call the Bengal Renaissance, the age of Ram Mohan and Vidyasagar, of Vivekananda, Rabindranath, and Jagadish Chandra Bose. But if that awakening began as a movement of letters and of reform, it was Prafulla Chandra Roy. More than anyone else, who gave it a laboratory and who insisted that science must walk out of the laboratory into the workshop, the factory, and the famine-stricken village. That is the man we have come to honor. We now come to the address of the afternoon and to a title that deserves a moment's reflection. Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy, a Rishi Dodhichi in the service of his nation. The reference will be quite familiar to many of you. And to speak on this, we could have no more fitting voice than our speaker this afternoon, Professor Amurtha Kumar Dotto, Director of the Indian Statistical Institute, a distinguished mathematician of the StatMath unit, whose research contributions in commutative algebra and affine algebraic geometry are internationally recognized, and who is equally well known for his deep and careful scholarship on the history of Indian mathematics and the Indian scientific tradition. In him, the scientist and the historian of ideas meet, which is precisely what today's subject demands. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request Professor Amurtha Kumar Dotto to deliver the address of the afternoon.
So today we are starting the Indian Heritage Series, and our idea is to remember our greats both in ancient and more recent times. And I'm very grateful to Dr. Ashok Lahiri for agreeing to grace the occasion. And Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy, I believe, is the right person to start the series, and I would mention why. So he was, as mentioned, he was born on 2nd August, which falls on a Sunday. And I was thinking of having the program on 2nd August, and Dr. Lahiri advised me, Nana, এটা 31শে জুলাই করুন, 2nd August হলে আমি আর আপনি ছাড়া কেউ থাকবে না. So just to give an indication of his subtle humor. Now, in Indian Statistical Institute, what is the connection with Acharya Prafulla Chandra Rai? So, to show the connection, I would like to recall a statement of Sri Aurobindo to a disciple. History very seldom records the things that were decisive but took place behind the veil. It records the show in front of the curtain. So in ISI, our ultimate idol is PC Mahalanobis, but we can probe further how Mahalanobis became Mahalanobis, how Shatyen Bose became Shatyen Bose, how Meghnad Shah became Meghnad Shah. What was the common secret behind what they became? So this can be put best in the words of Mahalanobis, which are not very well known. And remember, when Acharya Prafulla Chandra Rai passed in 1944, Mahalanobis had already established himself as an outstanding scientist. He was FRS in 1945, and his contributions to the nation had already started this in a big way. I mean, in this flood, his work on the large sample and its result in checking floods, and the setting up of ISI had also happened. But after PC Rai passed away, there was a memorial program in Presidency College in 1944, and at that time, Mahalanobis was very seriously ill, and he was actually fighting with death. But to everyone's surprise, he appeared in the program. And what did he say there? That, though I am very ill, I have rushed here to tell you something. The kind of treasures that we got when we were students from Acharya Prafulla Chandra Rai and other teachers have been great assets in our life. But with a deep sadness, I have to tell you that when we became teachers, we could not hand over to you any such treasure. He was addressing to the students. It is to convey this message that I had to come out of my medical confinement today. It was in Bengali, যে এটা এই স্বীকারোক্তি করার জন্য আজকে আমি মৃত্যুর সঙ্গে সংগ্রাম করছি, এই স্বীকারোক্তি করার জন্য আমার আজকে এখানে আসার দরকার ছিল, and he left. So this is the photograph of Acharya Prafulla Chandra Rai and a stamp was issued in his birth centenary year. So just to summarize his contributions, the Royal Society of Chemistry installs a chemical landmark at a site which had seen, in their words, a development in the chemical sciences that has made a significant contribution to the health, wealth, or quality of life of the nation. A question would arise at the relevance of PC Rai today. The first ever chemical landmark plaque outside Europe was set up, again in their words, to commemorate the life and achievements of Acharya PC Rai, father of Indian chemistry, philanthropist, entrepreneur, who founded modern chemistry teaching and research in India. So this plaque was set up in Presidency College, Kolkata, where Prafulla Chandra Rai had his first lessons in chemistry as a student and made his early breakthroughs as a scientist. And this decision was taken in 2011, which was the International Year of Chemistry, and which was also PC Rai's 150th birth anniversary. So the things that are mentioned, I'll just briefly touch upon, and there are many other things which, because of shortage of time, I won't even go into. His contribution to the national independence movement and such things, I'm not going today. So he started his doctoral research at Edinburgh University, and you can see his intellectual independence. In the mid-1880s, organic chemistry was progressing very well, and his PhD guide was an expert, whereas inorganic chemistry was dimly understood, although in real life, inorganic chemistry is rich in number and types of compounds. But as far as the study is concerned in mid-80s, I mean, there was not much study. But P.C. Rai daringly took up his thesis in inorganic chemistry, and his work was very highly appreciated. So he got DSc in 1887, and soon he was elected Vice President of the Chemical Society of the Edinburgh University. He was awarded scholarship. But at the same time, he took advantage of the expertise in organic chemistry to make extensive study of organic chemistry too. So many years later, he would, in the 1920s, he would publish papers on organic sulfur and fluorine compounds in Calcutta. So when he returned to India in 1888 with the DSc, and after waiting for a year, he got an offer from, he could join Presidency College, Calcutta, when research facilities were abysmal and his salary was also very poor. But in 1892, the British authorities agreed to construct a new laboratory in a new building after persuasive efforts of P.C. Rai and his teacher, Alexander Pedler, and they incorporated features of Edinburgh University's new chemical laboratory. Now, this is P.C. Rai's foresight that when he was in Edinburgh, he brought copies of the design so that they could be implemented in Calcutta. And Pedler also had brought information from Germany. So in 1894, the new laboratory became operational, and P.C. Rai initiates chemical research in modern India. And he was a prolific researcher in inorganic and organic compounds, particularly sulfur compounds, and inorganic and organic nitrites. So his first research was, today we have been talking a lot about fundamental and translational research. So his first research was translational, that he made a chemical examination of certain fats and oils like ghee and mustard oil to create standards and identify the adulteration of foodstuffs in Indian cities. It was a stupendous labor for nearly 3 years, and he published his findings in the Journal of Asiatic Society of Bengal. So this was his initial research. Now subsequently, there is this, what you call the fundamental research, 150 papers in internationally reputed journals. And this research took place in 2 phases. First was from 1894 to 1916 at Presidency College. And then when Ashutosh Mukherjee set up the Science College, he was appointed the first Palit Professor of Chemistry, and then he shifted to Calcutta University in 1916, and he was there till 1934. So his first landmark discovery was mercurous nitrite in 1895, the same year that J.C. Bose made that wireless communication. So P.C. Rai discovers the unknown compound mercurous nitrite, and the magic of this, that it is a moderately stable yellow crystalline solid formed by a chemical reaction between metallic mercury and dilute aqueous nitric acid, and studied its reaction and properties. Now, why it created a stir? Because the discovery of a compound of unexpected stability from 2 relatively unstable ions. And this attracted immediate international attention, and he received congratulatory letters from eminent chemists like Roscoe, Divers, Berthelot, Victor Mayer, Walhard. And I had once been giving a talk in, it was televised, and the current president of the Indian Chemical Society was presiding, Professor Jadhav was presiding over the talk, and he mentioned that had Nobel Prize existed in 1895-96, then P.C. Rai would have definitely been nominated because of the discovery. It had created such a stir in 1896. Of course, in this new century, the nature of chemistry completely changed with the discovery of atomic structures, and it became so. Anyway, so the discovery of mercurous nitride opened up this, what I had said, that nitrate chemistry was not well studied. And what was dimly understood became a fertile research area here in Calcutta. And P.C. Rai and his students plowed this fertile field of nitrate chemistry, producing one significant result after another. And he became famous as the master of nitrites. And it is very fitting, his discovery came during a decade of resurgence. You see, 1893, 1890s were a period of awakening. So there were the mighty speeches of Swami Vivekananda in US, radio transmission of J.C. Bose using microwaves, and along with that, this discovery of mercurous nitride had also contributed to the national, rejuvenation and awakening. And in 1902, he published his History of Hindu Chemistry. And another landmark discovery was in 1907. At that time, the existing theory was that ammonium nitrite readily breaks up into nitrogen gas and water with the evolution of heat. So textbook wisdom was that this isolation of this extremely unstable substance is impossible. And in 1907, P.C. Rai isolated ammonium nitrate in pure form and determined its vapor density in vacuum. It showed that the compound can be sublimated without decomposition even at 60 degrees. Now, just see the impact and the perception about India, which all his work resulted. So when he gave a talk on this in Sir William Ramsay, mentioned after his talk, we had the privilege and pleasure of listening tonight to that eminent Indian chemist whose name is already familiar to us for his most interesting researches on nitrites, and who unaided has kept the torch burning for years in that ancient land of civilization and learning. So by his work, both on actual frontier chemistry as well as his findings on history of Hindu chemistry, he was his work did the talking of the glorifying India. Another landmark I would talk about is that in 1911, P.C. Rai and his student, Jitendra Rakshit, and I'll come back to this name later, discovered the first room temperature ionic liquid. And we don't talk about it, therefore, if you ask in the internet that who was the first to synthesize ionic liquid, that answer that would come is in 1914, P. Walden synthesized and characterized ethyloammonium nitrate. But P.C. Rai had already done ethyloammonium nitrite way back, not way back, but 3 years before Walden. And the value of the work is that in the room temperature ionic liquids are excellent green solvents that can be used as electrolytes. They have diverse applications, for instance, for electric battery, and its low volatility makes them safe for human health. So it has, huge impact, this discovery. Now we shift to another landmark of P.C. Rai, his work on Indian chemistry, ancient Indian chemistry. And he published it in 2 volumes in 1902 and 1908, and he brought light to the chemical technology in ancient India. And this was a very, very painstaking work, but it was his patriotic zeal combined with passion for history and chemistry. Incidentally, P.C. Rai was a versatile scholar. He was interested in many things, history, literature, and he chose science because he realized that science and technology is needed for the resurgence of India. So although in spite of his predilection for history and literature, he went to chemistry, but he used his history, his fascination for history and competence in history to do this work which combines the knowledge of history and chemistry. And his motivation is clearly stated in the volume 2 of History of Hindu Chemistry. The Hindu nation with its glorious past and vast latent potentialities may yet look forward to a still more glorious future, and if the perusal of these pages will have the effect of stimulating my countrymen to strive to regain their old position in the intellectual hierarchy of nations, I shall not have labored in vain. Now, just to give an example of how he presents and how only he could have presented, that is, it is one thing for a pure historian to dig out history of science, but when a scientist digs out, he can share insights which it would not be possible for others. So he mentions that Sir Humphrey Davy, so I'm just giving one example from his monumental contributions in history of, on the history of Indian chemistry. Sir Humphrey Davy was a discoverer of potassium, and P.C. Roy quotes Davy, who had said, the ancients did not know how to distinguish between potassium carbonate and sodium carbonate. Quoting Humphrey Davy's remark, P.C. Roy says, but in our Ayurveda, this sharp distinction has been clearly stated. That in Shushruta it occurs, potassium carbonate has been described as Yavakshara and sodium carbonates as Sarjikashara. Now, in Shushruta, there is a clear distinction between caustic alkali and mild alkali, the method of preparing alkalis, of rendering them caustic by addition of lime, direction for preserving caustic alkali in iron vessels. And then he points out that Shushruta's method you will look for in vain in any European treatise before the 16th or the 17th century. The process as given in the Shushruta is so scientific that it can be bodily transferred to any modern textbook on chemistry. But here there is the balance of P.C. Roy. He also points out that, that where the West has gone beyond Shushruta, he makes a point that this distinction is very clear, the methods of preparation are clear, but what is lacking is the cause of difference between caustic alkali and mild alkali, that the presence of carbon dioxide in mild alkali makes a difference. So P.C. Roy also points out that this was first pointed out by Joseph Black in 1755, that is 2000 years after Shushruta. Now, it is interesting to note how he came into this ancient Indian chemistry. So in 1897, the 70-year-old Berthelot, who was both a scientist as well as a historian of science, expressed strong desire to know about ancient Indian contributions. So he was an authority on ancient world chemistry, but he wanted to know about India. And P.C. Roy says that he was at that time very young, in 1897, just 36 years old. I received almost an electric impulse and was stirred to fresh activity. So in 1897 to 98, he writes a short monograph on Indian chemistry based on a very minor work. Later, his study was extensive. So a minor ancient Indian work he took and wrote a short monograph and sent it to Berthelot. And Berthelot wrote about it, making glowing reference to P.C. Roy in an article, and he gifted his 3-volume work on Arab and Syrian contributions. And the impact it had on P.C. Roy, a thrill as it were passed through my body. Here was I, a junior professor of chemistry, almost unknown to fame, and there the foremost chemist and historian of chemistry speaking of me as a servant. The idea soon took possession of my mind that I was destined for some higher production, and I was not at all appalled by the gigantic nature of the task. Now we move to the next topic, P.C. Roy as teacher and mentor. And to describe it, one has to quote Rabindranath. So I am giving my translation. Rabindranath, of course, wrote in Bengali during the felicitation of P.C. Roy on the occasion of his 70th birthday, 70th birth anniversary. So Rabindranath says, the scientist unfolds the latent power in the material world, matter converted to energy and so on. Acharya Prafulla Chandra has gone deeper Many are the young men in whose minds he has aroused the hidden, unmanifested powers of perception, discernment, and insight. The seeker of knowledge is not rare, but seldom, and this Rabindranath is saying in the 1930s, when Bengal was, teeming with greats. And so he says, the seeker of knowledge is not rare, Bengal is full of them. But seldom does one come across as a savant who can activate the minds of men by the force of his character. And that distinguishes P.C. Rai from other greats. And then Rabindranath gives the analogy. It is recorded in the Upanishads that the being that was one declared, I shall be many. One becomes many. This urge for self-abnegation is at the root of creation. Acharya Prafulla Chandra has followed the same creative principle. He has become many in his pupils. His mind has rejuvenated in the minds of many. This would not have been possible if he had not made a gift of himself unreservedly. This power of creation, based on self-sacrifice, is a divine power. The glory of this power in the Acharya will never fade. So, to give a concrete example, there were greats in P.C. Rai's time and later. Ramanujan, great thing, but the presence of Ramanujan did not create another Ramanujan. And I may make a blasphemous remark, the presence of J.C. Bose did not create another J.C. Bose. But P.C. Rai presence created several P.C. Rais. So let me mention some of them. He brought into the atmosphere of Indian universities an urge towards research. Ramanujan, Jagadish Bose, they were all solitary researchers. But P.C. Rai transmitted urge for research around him. Around, I said, 150 papers. Around half of his 150 papers are with his research students. So those 75 papers were part of his mentoring process. And so he formed an internationally acclaimed Indian School of Chemical Research. So it has been described by Sylvian Levy. So in my introduction, it was mentioned about laboratory. P.C. Rai was the first laboratory. So this laboratory was described as a nursery from which issue forth the young chemist of New India. And what does Donan say? About not P.C. Rai, about his pupils. They were infused by the spirit of their master in India and were determined to carry on the great work which he had begun. Nobly have they done so. India now ranks high among the nations of the world which contribute importantly to the advance of science. It would be difficult to overestimate the part which the work and influence of Sir P.C. Rai had played in this splendid development, which Rabindranath had described in a way which only he could have. So to give some concrete examples of illustrious students, Neil Ratandhar, who was a pioneer of physical chemistry research in India, and who had the stature that he served in the Nobel Prize Committee for Chemistry in 3 years. Gyanendranath Mukherjee, who was a pioneer of colloidal chemistry research in India. Now, we talk so much about the IITs. Gyan Chandra Ghosh was the first director of the first IIT, and it is he who set up the IIT model. So these IITs, they are all national institutes. Students from all over the India come and study together. So this entire thing was done by Gyan Ghosh, that in Kharagpur, which became a model for others. And he was known as Ghosh. He is known for the Ghosh equation in the theory of electrolytes. There's an interesting anecdote that Sir Ronald Shaw was then the governor of Bengal, and P.C. Rai got a letter from the governor requesting Ray to meet the governor at his convenience and explain what is this Ghosh equation. So mind you, two things, that this Ghosh equation created such a stir that Governor General wanted to understand what is this, but for that he didn't ask Gyan Ghosh to meet him, he asked P.C. Rai, because he has to understand and only the master can explain. Biresh Guha, who is the father of modern biochemistry in India, and who saved millions of lives during the 1943 famine by creating during that scarcity, by creating artificial milk and artificial protein substitutes. And incidentally, most of PCRI students were connected with the revolutionary movement. And Biresh Guho was, in the police diary, there was a problem in going to, getting passport to go abroad. But PCRI had such an influence with the then British government that under his influence and the influence of the British Vice Chancellor of Calcutta University, Greaves, the police had to, clear it. And he went abroad, worked with Nobel laureates, and then brought biochemistry in India. Other illustrious students of PCRI, in chemistry, the name is huge. But there are others who were impacted by him, but who are more identified in other areas, like Upendranath Brahmachari, who was responsible for saving, lakhs of lives, which were, Assam was getting eradicated because of Kala Azar, and he discovered the wonder drug, urea stibamine. So you can see that though he is identified in the medicinal field, but there is a chemistry thing involved. Shishir Kumar Mitro, Mahalanobis, Meghnad Shah, S.N. Bose, all students of PCRI. And we hear about Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar. He was initiated to chemistry by another student of PCRI. Now, we have been talking about all brilliant students, but I talked about that ionic liquid was with Jitendranath Rakshit. Jitendranath Rakshit failed in BSc from St. Xavier's. PCRI recognized in this failed student a worker of rare gifts. Out of a few bits of rejected glass tubing, this failed assistant could improvise an apparatus which hitherto could be had from England or Germany only after months of anxious waiting. Mentored by PCRI, this failed student collaborated with him in Ray's that famous isolation of ammonium nitrates and had 40 papers. His method of estimation of morphine and codeine has been quoted at length in treatises on analytical chemistry. And as I mentioned, that he collaborated with PCRI in the discovery of world's first ionic liquid. So some features of his magical teaching: he planned his experiments and then arranged the experiments to supplement his class lectures. His class lectures were very carefully prepared, and the substance of lectures were written beforehand. They were designed to help students attain a clear grasp of principles. And then he transmitted to his pupils not only love for chemistry, but also love for Bengal and love for India. And he weaved historical insights into his lectures, the contributions of pioneers, and he gave inspiring anecdotes about the great masters. And there was a liveliness because, his scholarship was wide, so his lectures were enriched with natural wit and apt citations. It could be from Shakespeare, it could be from Rabindranath, Madhusudan, Emerson, and ancient chemists like Nagarjuna or Bhagavata. And he had a warm, lovable personality marked by simplicity, kindness, and he had a close personal association with his students. He used to give helpful advice to students from the villages, and he used to give financial help to the needy students. Next, we move to the industrial thing. So, alarmed at the growing unemployment, PCRI tried to revive the lost spirit of industrial enterprise in Bengal. And through Bengal Chemical, he demonstrated how to harness scientific knowledge creatively for industrial use. So the two important things are the iron and sulfuric acid, and iron was already being taken care of Tata, so he concentrated on sulfuric acid, which is regarded as the mother of all industries. And Bengal Chemical started manufacturing sulfuric acid, and also first he manufactured the standard drugs, and then he started manufacturing indigenous drugs based on Ayurvedic principles. Actually, he sat down with Ayurvedic doctors and then prepared drugs which at that time were more effective than the standard Western drugs, and the British were forced to recognize them. And it was inspiring for students. So he wrote a book on inorganic chemistry, and it is a very model that how a subject like chemistry can be made interesting. It is still a model for textbook writing, what he wrote in 1999. And that had a picture of Bengal Chemical Factory. So it was very inspiring for students that here there is a chemical factory here in Calcutta. And as I told you that PC Rai was given a very low salary, and when he had protested, when initially in 1889 he had come, at that time he was insulted by the then DPI that if he were such a clever chemist, he could open his own concern and maybe employ people at the salaries of DPI. And he actually did that through Bengal Chemical. And the British during World War I begged Bengal Chemical to give supplies of large quantities of sulfuric acid, nitric acid, sodium thiosulfate, caffeine, fire extinguisher, etc. And then he set up, helped in establishment in many other industries. The list is, as you can see, huge. And the munificence of Acharya Rai. Acharya Prafulla Chandra Rai lived like a pauper, like a hermit, but donated like a prince. He gave away all he had. We know when we talk about philanthropy, the name of Vidyasagar comes to my mind. I mean, that is what is written about by books. But PC Rai goes far, far beyond Vidyasagar in munificence. He gave money to the poor students, financially weak patients, widows, orphans, and destitutes, and he gave money for the cause of science, especially chemistry, and for indigenous industries. He gave financial support to numerous students. I wrote a 6-part article on Acharya Prafulla Chandra Rai, and after finishing that, and I consulted a lot of books on PC Rai, nowhere this is mentioned, but then I was reading a biography of Rajinikanth Sen, and from there I came to know that he had been supporting Rajinikanth Sen after he had cancer. This is mentioned in the life of Rajinikanth Sen, not on the write-ups of PC Rai. So it's just amazing. And also the evaluation of Rajinikanth that PC Rai had done. I have not come across so deep estimation of Rajinikanth Sen in any other writing. So he supported at least 45 institutions. He gave major part of his life savings to rupees 10,000 to Calcutta University for an annual prize for research in chemistry named after Nagarjuna, the great ancient Indian chemist. Again in rupees 10,000 to Calcutta University for a prize in zoology and botany in the memory of Ashutosh Mukhopadhyay, rupees 10,000 for starting the Indian Chemical Society, rupees 10,000 to City College, rupees 10,000 to an education society in his village. Just to give you an idea that at what level he gave about his munificence, his monthly salary at Presidency College was rupees 800. He used to keep for himself rupees 40 and gave away the rest. So as I say, the dimension is just, mind-boggling. After retirement from presidency, he used to get pension of rupees 430, and he used to keep for himself rupees 200, and that also to meet all his travel expenses for academic purpose. He didn't take, travel from grant from others. He used to pay himself, so therefore he kept now more money, rupees 200. So his monthly salary at Calcutta University, arranged by Sir Ashutosh, was rupees 1,000. He did not draw his salary. Requested universities to set up a modern research laboratory with his salary. Would return any honorarium for lectures, examination fee, or any payment from any educational institution. I urge the institute to use it for the advancement of science education. In fact, I have a plan for starting an Acharya Prafulla Chandra Rai Development Fund here, but in fact today I had a plan of announcing it, but since it has to go through various processes, so I was advised not to do it so fast. Now, why the title? Maharshi Dadichi is revered among the greatest sages of Indian mythology. He had sacrificed his life to enable the devas to manufacture the all-powerful weapon Vajra from his bones. And Dodhichi's bones, the Vajra, form the symbol in the medal of the Paramvir Chakra, India's highest military award for sacrifice. And this idea comes from Sister Nivedita. In 1904, Sister Nivedita designed the first Indian national flag with the Vajra at the center on the ideals of the self-sacrificing Dadhichi. She has explicitly mentioned Dadhichi. And her students embroidered the words Vande Mataram in Bangla, which you will come to hear. The flag was displayed in the exhibition of Congress in 1906. Now compare with P.C. Rai. During the first decade of the 20th century, P.C. Rai was simultaneously researching on nitrites and creating stir in the research world, researching on ancient Indian chemistry, and his work still remains the ultimate in history of Indian chemistry. He taught extensively, not in ISI, it was in Presidency College in British times, just one or two teachers. I mean, it was a huge load of teaching. He set up Bengal Chemical and also helped other industries. He wrote a textbook on inorganic chemistry simultaneously. Just imagine the stupendous labor. And indeed, his health had broken down. That doesn't occur in his autobiography, but Meghna Shah has written about it. So you can see that he was Rishi Dadhichi to his bones. And in 1988, there was a stamp of Rishi Dadhichi. This is, of course, the artist's imagination, but you can see there's a resemblance with P.C. Rai. So consciously or subconsciously, when the artist was drawing this, something of P.C. Rai came here. So finally, I end with the tribute that J.C. Bose gave to P.C. Rai during the 1930s. Sir P.C. Rai has produced a deep impression in his dual capacity as a pathfinder and originator of work of great utility. From the earliest days, he exhibited a special faculty for carrying out original investigations of a high order. It is impossible at the present time for others to realize the numerous difficulties and obstacles that confronted him, but these were never able to stand in the way of reaching the goal he had set before him. On the contrary, they served as a stimulus to awaken to the utmost his latent powers. In his long and distinguished career as a scientific investigator, he has not only made important contributions in advancements of science, but has also evoked the true spirit of research among his disciples, many of whom now occupy very important positions in the scientific world. Such an achievement in the lifetime of one man is indeed remarkable, but Sir P.C. Rai has done a great deal more. He was one of the first to realize the importance of Indian industries for the economic advancement of the country. With the object in view, he reached the very little he possessed, and the venture started in this modest way has now grown into perhaps the most successful chemical industry in the whole of India. Now, his final paragraph, the association of plain living and high thinking is always very rare. In addition to this, there is in Sir P.C. Rai the element of vigorous action, which knows no rest. The combination of such qualities in a single individual is indeed rare in any country. Now you mark the last phrase. And mind you, this is in the 1930s, in the high noon of Bengal Renaissance, or Indian Renaissance. Rabindranath was there. And J.C. Bose is saying, there can be no higher example for the younger generation to emulate than the life of this great teacher. I personally feel his birthday, 2nd August, should have been the National Teachers' Day, but at least it should be made the National Chemistry Day. I mean, we have 29 June as the National Statistics Day. Definitely we should have something in his name in 2nd August if Professor Lahiri could do something about it. And I end with excerpt from Ray's autobiography, Life and Experiences of a Bengal Chemist. There is a connecting link pervading my life work. My activities are parts in a comprehensive piece. Whatever field I plowed as a humble instrument in the hand of providence. My failures are my own, but my successes, if any, are to be attributed to the guidance of the all-knowing who chose me to be his humble instrument. After all, a divinity shapes our end. Just some references, if you want to know more details about his chemistry as a scientist, There is an excellent book by the Indian Chemical Society written by Animesh Chakraborty of the Indian Association for Cultivation of Science. And I had written a series of 6 articles, an article in 6 parts in Mother India, and a shorter version, and then P.C. Rai's Life and Experiences of a Bengal Chemist, his autobiography, his lectures, and also I would say the textbook, Inorganic Chemistry. So I get reminded of Sri Aurobindo's one line in Savitri, that one man's perfection still can save the world.
Thank you, sir. It is always a pleasure to hear it from you. Now I will request Dr. Omlan Banerjee, Head GSU, to felicitate our director.
They are fossils of a million years old, which our geologists have discovered from Tamil Nadu.
We now turn from remembrance to responsibility, but before our discussion begins, it is our privilege to welcome and felicitate our distinguished panelists. May I request Professor Amurtha Kumar Dotto, once again, Director of the Indian Statistical Institute, to kindly come forward to felicitate our guests. I now invite on stage Dr. Ashok Lahiri, economist and public servant of long standing, formerly Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India and Vice Chairman of the Niti Aayog. I now invite Professor Kalo Varun Maiti, Director of the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science, a condensed matter physicist of distinction who heads the very institution founded by Dr. Mohinderlal Sarkar in 1876, with which Acharya Roy himself was closely associated. And I now invite Sri Chandra Ghosh, founder of Bandhan Bank, a man who began with the conviction that credit and dignity belong to the poorest and built one of India's most remarkable financial institutions from the ground up here in Bengal.
So in him, we have a living example of the ideals of Acharya Prafulla Chandra.
May we once again have a round of applause for all our distinguished guests. It is one thing to honor a great life. It is quite another to ask what that life demands of us. Acharya Roy asked the youth of his time to build institutions, to build industry, to build character, and he would, I suspect, ask exactly the same of us this afternoon. And so our panel takes up the question, how to carry forward the legacy of Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy. Coordinator of our discussion is Professor Shagotam Das, Professor in charge of the Computer and Communication Sciences Division of ISI and an internationally recognized researcher in machine learning and evolutionary computation. Sir.
Very good afternoon to one and all. Professor Dotto has just given us Acharya Prafulla Chandra as Rishi Dodhichi, the sage who gave up his bones so that a weapon could be made from them. It is the right image, and it also leaves us in a slightly uncomfortable position because commemoration is easy and inheritance is hard. Every year we garland him, we recite the similar 4 facts: Edinburgh, Master of Nitrite, Bengal Chemical, and the room with the iron bedstead, and we go home. So the question this panel has been given is deliberately slightly awkward, not who was he, not how great was he, but how do we actually carry this forward? What concretely does an institution do on the 1st of August that it was not doing on the 31st of July to carry his lineage? So I should say that we are sitting in an appropriate room to ask it. Prafulla Chandra taught the young man who founded this institute out of a corner of the Presidency College Physics Laboratory on a first year budget of 238 rupees. Whatever else this place has inherited, it inherited the habit of starting things without waiting for the most opportune situations or some permissions. We have 3 very eminent personalities with us today, each of whom carried a piece of that inheritance in a different direction, into economic policy, into a scientific institution, and into building an enterprise from nothing. We have with us Professor Dr. Ashok Lahiri, economist, of eminence, Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, who has spent a career on the question of where India's growth and India's jobs actually come from. We also have with us Professor Kalobaran Maiti, Director of the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science, the institution founded in 1876 by Mahendralal Sarkar, on very nearly the same conviction that drove Prafulla Chandra, that Indians must cultivate science, not merely receive it. IACS completed its 150th year a few days back, and we also have with us Sri Chandrasekhar Ghosh, founder of Bandhan, who began with the borrower Prafulla Chandra worried about most, the one with no capital and no collateral, and built a bank. So with this galactic panel, let us begin the discussion. I would first come to Dr. Ashok Lahiri And Prafulla Chandra's economic complaint was very specific, and he made it for 40 years. He said that the educated Bengali wanted a chakri, a salary, a designation, someone else's payroll, while the trade and the industry of his own province passed into other hands. He wrote on rural indebtedness and on unemployment, and he thought the cure was that graduates should become producers. So, sir, you have spent your career close to the data and close to the public policy. A century later, was he right? And if he was right, is this a problem that policy can actually solve, or is it a problem of what a society honors? So, please.
Thank you very much. It's always a privilege to be back in ISI. I have a long association. Professor Amartya Datta has given us a good discussion on Acharya Prafulla Chandra Rai's life. Now, what is the relevance of Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy here? Let me first mention he described him as a rishi. Now, in 1901, Acharya was drawing a salary of rupees 800. Rupees 800 in 1901 would be equivalent to about rupees 5 lakh today. And he spent only rupees 40. Prices were very low at that time. 40 would be about rupees 24,000. How many of us can survive on 24,000 rupees? I think very difficult. And I suspect, Amartya Babu, you will correct me, one of the reasons for his frail health may be he didn't spend enough on food. He denied himself even the fundamental nutrition. Now, I look upon Acharya not only as a scientist, as a historian, as a great teacher, but as an interface between science, technology, and industry. Now, we haven't seen that kind of initiative in Indian academia as yet, as what we saw with the Acharya. Because here the fundamental thing is, I believe that one of the reasons we suffer today is because we missed out on the first industrial revolution in the 19th century, late 18th century, and the second industrial revolution. We did nothing about steam engine, internal combustion engine, electricity, cars, automobiles. We missed out on it. And now we need to catch up. This catching up on the technological front requires, if not Acharya, at least many of his disciples who are doing fundamental research as well as translational research and application of modern science and technology to our industry. Here, the Acharya wrote his history of Hindu chemistry, but he also was very scathing in his remarks. I quote him, quote, "For nearly 1,000 years, the Hindu nation has been as good as dead. As the son of a rich man having wasted his paternal property has to live a life of penury, but is full of conceit and vanity because of the wealth once possessed by his ancestors, so he is the Hindu of the present day." Again, unquote. Again I quote, "Ray also believed that the scientific spirit of ancient India declined as a result of the caste system. Another factor, in his opinion, was the turn given to Vedanta philosophy by Shankara, as a result of which the material world came to be regarded as an illusion, causing a loss of natural curiosity." This is a controversial comment, yet the Acharya said it. So the time has come. Shagottam, you asked me what is the relevance of Acharya today. I think the most important thing is bridging this gap between what we know in the academic institutions, particularly in scientific and technical matters, and what we apply in industry. This is so important. Let me just mention one thing in this context. When we were young, that was a long time ago, I was young, but I remember that we used to be very proud in Belilias Road, Janish, ওখানে একটা লেদ মেশিন আছে, that is from 1850, এখনো চলছে. We should be ashamed of it, rather than proud that we are working with a machine which is 100 years old. Technological obsolescence, we have forgotten about. We are not keeping up with the technology. So, I don't know whether I answered your question to some extent at least. So my take from Acharya Prafulla Chandra Ray is to bridge this gap between what we know in academic institutions and what we apply in our farms, in our industry, in our services. The time has come to catch up on that and really live up to the Acharya's expectations. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that touches some very nice points, as Dr. Lahiri said. And this institute has always blended these two distinct lines of research. One is foundational, fundamental, deep theoretical research, which has its fruits to be born in maybe 25 years, 30 years down the line in future. And the other one is the type of research which is driven by urgency, need, national importance, and crisis that is faced nationally. So sampling survey, those jute survey, crop cutting survey, all these started in that way and succeeded a lot. Not only Professor Rao's bounds or Professor D. Basu's sufficient statistics theory, but also in parallel to that, these urgency-driven research, which were translational at that time. And of course, with your guidelines, the culture at ISI, as we were discussing in the morning, is shifting towards more need-driven translational research that could go to marketable products. But this is a cultural shift for this institute, which has been excelling in foundation research now and then. Thank you, sir, for your thoughtful deliberations. Now, let me come to Professor Maiti. In 1896, Acharya published mercurous nitrite. He was not looking for it. He was making an intermediate for calomel, a routine pharmaceutical job, and a yellow crystal turned up where nothing should have been. He stopped and looked, and in the same decade, in the same city, he was running a factory, bench to factory floor, and he saw no discontinuity at all between the two. That was the translational thing at that time. So we now have translational cells, incubators, tech transfer offices, MOUs. Was it still so hard? Is the bottleneck money, incentives, or culture? And which of the three can a director actually change? We can share something.
Thank you. First of all, I like to thank Professor Datta for inviting me to this meeting, and really great to see you here. So, I mean, I really did not, I learned a lot from your lecture about PC Ray. And so since I was pretty busy with organizing 150th anniversary of ISCS, which we celebrated the day before yesterday, with the presence of our Honorable Minister, Science and Technology from the Government of West Bengal, Professor Kullan Chakraborty. So I didn't have much time to put a deep thought about this event, but anyway, whatever comes to my mind, I'll just try to share. One thing I would like to mention here is that I feel privileged and honored to represent an institute called Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science, which was established 150 years ago by a great visionary, Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar. And Acharya Prafulla Chandra Ray, when he was a student in Presidency College, he was actually one of the regular students who attended evening classes in ISCS to the best of my knowledge. So that way we have a very, very close relation with PC Ray, and I really feel very proud for that. Of course, we had almost all the luminaries that we think about. They have left their footprint at ISCS. One good thing about Calcutta, which maybe I can say, I mean, I of course have lived here all my childhood, but some years I was out of Kolkata. But if we look at all big discoveries, scientific practices that India has produced, I think almost everything is located to Kolkata. I mean, it's not just ISCS, science college like, you know, Vidubhushan Ray, we have heard about X-ray diffraction, we heard about, say, SD Chatterjee, Samadas Chatterjee from in Bose Institute, who discovered spontaneous nuclear fission. Of course, the credits are not really in line with the kind of discoveries we had. In ISCS, of course, you know that Kedareshwar Banerjee, I mean, of course, Raman effect, you know, I'm not really talking about that, but there are many other works that have happened, like Kedareshwar Banerjee. He is the first one who discovered how to determine structure of molecules by X-ray diffraction. Later, earlier, of course, people used to use trial and error method. It used to take a very tedious kind of things. So Professor Banerjee found out, and he gave the mathematical formula how to determine that. In 1985, of course, the Chemistry Nobel Prize was given for the structure determination, and of course, they recognized Kedareshwar Banerjee's work as a foundation for their activity. Similarly, we know about Raychaudhuri equation and so on. So I would say that, I mean, we have been very creative, and we of course love to culture science or cultivate science the way it is. Although there is a general push now, because our scientific or education ecosystem has been changing, and I think the government of India or the state governments, they have been focusing on how to address social problems or the things that we need to take forward can be addressed appropriately utilizing the intellectuals available locally. So, which is a good thing, but I think we have to keep that flavor of us, which has been there for long, in mind, that if we want to bring in a difference, if we want to create a leadership, we cannot really compromise our curiosity-driven research or fundamental research. Because if we think of any renaissance that has come up, even in Europe, you know, today we talk about MRIs, we talk about levitated train, we talk about quantum computation. This has been possible because someone some time back discovered superconductivity. Today we are using a mobile phone to, I mean, record a video. Like when I was a student, if you want to store some 120 kilobyte kind of a data, you need a huge kind of a disk, and then this floppy disks and so on. So which has changed so much because someone actually has discovered GMR. So what I'm trying to say is that the existing knowledge that we have, this is often not adequate to have technological advance, although we can actually make some difference in our society by better utilization of the knowledge. So if we want to create a leadership, then we must be more creative, give importance to fundamental research, and see how it can be, I mean, made better. One story which I heard about Professor Prafulla Chandra Ray, I mean, I'm sure everybody knows about it, but maybe I just mention about this, that PC Ray, I think he used to respect a lot the Russian chemists. Like if somebody really published something, and he always used to respect that they must have done a very thorough job. Now, one day, I guess that some of his students, they were trying to reproduce the chemical reaction which was published in the literature, and they have tried several times and it was not working. So then they approached PC Ray. You see that you have been so respectful and so on, but we have tried our best, and you see we have followed all the procedures accurately and it didn't work. So that means that there is some problem. Then PC Ray thought about it for some time. Then suddenly he put a ice cube inside the reactant, that thing, and immediately the compound formed. So you know that one didn't realize that in Russia or somewhere when they were doing the experiment, the temperature could have been much lower than what we are doing here. So, you know, this creativity, the thinking that is there, it needs to be utilized and we have to cultivate it adequately well. Which, you know, that I think India has been doing well in terms of pharmaceuticals or chemistry, particularly chemical industry. I think they are doing reasonably well. But if I want to think about like any material that has been discovered in India, you will not find really many. You see that the reason is that most of the time, I think people run behind numbers. Because of course that is important for their career profile, promotion and so on. But unless we focus on creativity, try to make a difference, try to respect our failures and really see the, how it can be taken forward, it would be difficult to really progress. So PC Ray is one of the greatest example, as I learned from his talk also, that we need to really think in an open-minded way, culture the way that we used to do, and try to see that what difference that we can make. Then only we can actually achieve a leadership. Just one last point I can mention is that in IACS, what I have been trying is to actually encourage our student to come up with ideas of startups. Like if they have some thinking of doing something which can be considered a startup, so we can try to provide some support. Of course, we have to get the funding, sources and so on. I'm sure now he would provide support, but we should encourage our student also, because nowadays, I think 2 days back we had a panel discussion, we were talking about why our children, they are not so much encouraged to take up science as their career. The main reason, I think, is that everybody, those who are doing science, they think that the ultimate end is getting a job in academic institutions, and which is very rare, because if you have one position, some 500 applications comes. So education also has different other perspectives. It can be translated to different things. That mindset has to change, and we need to provide that kind of encouragement. Then I think we will be able to come to that leadership that we are aiming for. I think that's basically it.
Thank you so much. It was very enriching. And so there are trade-offs between foundational research, translational research, and also today we were discussing with Dr. Lahiri about visibility of scientific research, which nowadays seems to be very important, because right in this city we have several unsung heroes. Actually, your short speech reminded me, like, most of you might not have heard of, at least the younger people, of Kedarnath Das or Shambhu Bishwas, the rabbit loop model of malaria, this toxicity, cholera toxicity, and Dilip Mahalanobis. They lived their whole life in this city. Dilip Mahalanobis was the first applicator of oral rehydration solution, oral rehydration therapy. He saved millions of lives. But until in 2021, the common people did not came across his contributions because of lack of visibility. He was living. We actually met him in person, right? That is one thing. Another thing is the Indian, as Sir also told, the Indian diaspora, academic diaspora, has to also revive its examination system. In many foreign universities, you see the PhD is in industrial track, where publication is not necessary or not the only criteria. You need to do patents, or there are other ways of evaluating. But here, that thing will soon shape up, I believe, for more translated research. Finally, I come to Sri Chandrasekhar Ghosh, and Prafulla Chandra told young Bengalis to stop applying for jobs and start making things. And he was not making a speech. He had done it himself in a room in his own house, and he lost money for years before Bengal Chemicals stood up. He also wrote again and again about the villager who had no access to capital and therefore no way out. So you began roughly where his worry ended. What did actually it cost you? And what does a young person sitting in this hall today have that you didn't? And what do they still not have? If you, sir, kindly reflect on this, it would be great.
Thank you, Professor Datto, to organize this, the very renowned personality introduced to all of us. Though we are know about the name, but the details you have been done the study, and very tough to remember all of these things on that until you are not people like to organize it on that. And very tough for me as a very simple person to talk a very renowned personality, P.C. Roy. Of course, everyone know his the contribution, but what I learned about it on that from his the life, he is a scientist, he is a teacher, he is an entrepreneur, he is an institutional builder, he is a social worker. All of this, the role inside to the one people, we cannot be compared to any other one. It's a different of the character of that. So I feel that he only maybe like to that period, not in it today. He has been done there's all these things on that. Of course, the people also say that, he also mentioned about somewhere on that. Anything we like to do, it must be specific purpose. And if it is not purpose is clarified, and that the initiative cannot be sustained. And other side also, if anything like to sustain, it must be a purpose. And he has the purpose very clear for the society. So that we are listen from this, the Professor Datto. He has been earned 1,000 rupees and the 40 rupees are spent, 1,000 rupees given to this initiative. It's not in a one initiative, multiple initiative is provided the fund because of the cause, whatever the question you ask about it, the access of financial services very tough in that time, till now today. So that we are born as a bandhan, we are also founding on that. The access of the fund is not very easy, even digital perspective now, you have been now seen on that. So it is very important for the people's life change, and if they will get the easy access of financial services. And whatever you know about the bandhan, actually our objective was the how we can give the easy financial services access to the bottom of the pyramid. And sir is there, we are know that about the statistics. We know about the economy, how the GDP growth converted about the 1,000 rupees has come to no, whatever the 5 lakhs rupees on that. That is fine. But another part is there that till now we are looking at in that our inequalities day by day increasing. We are saying that the per capita income is increasing, but inequality increasing. That means the wealth is coming to the some percentage of the top people. How we can be like to design the Indian the economy, and the access will be get the bottom of the pyramid. Otherwise, this inequality cannot be like to reduce. And as a Bandhan, we have a very small time of the life. What we learn from the ground, we see that what they have need. They depend on the money lenders. 10% per month interest I received in my life. When I knocked the every bank doors, no one given the fund to me. And everyone asking this, the renowned personality you should be, your balance sheet should be 3 years, your balance sheet should be a profit, then you will be like to get the access the fund. And this is that position, I am only the dependent on traditional money lenders. I received the 2 lakh rupees and 10%, 7.5% per month interest. No business can be survived. So of course this is a situation. So that we are given to this, the bottom of the pyramid, how they will get the access of the funding. And that is now has come. If I say the total of the country now, though we have the 140 crores in the population, we are accessing that the 2 crores population. 2 crores are women. They are taking this at 10,000, now they are running the restaurant. There is a big entrepreneur have been developed on that. I hope that we can learn from the Acharya Prafulla Chandra Rai. We are born not only like to earn for me, we also like to give to the society. If we like to give to the society, this is the way we can be like to make him as a পথ প্রদর্শক হিসাবে যে আমরা কিভাবে আরেকটু সোসাইটির জন্য বেশি করতে পারি। আমি inspired from his history, and very small thing I have been done. I feel that we have need to encourage the young group, how they will be also like to come this is then as an entrepreneur. Other side is this is the society in specifically in Bengali, very tough to convince the parents to start a business. They are always against the business. They are always talking and that go to the job. So we should be like to change in this mind from the learning of Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose, though he is in Prafulla Chandra Rai, though he is a scientist and he is a teacher, and he also built up enterprise. And that enterprise till now is a very renowned in the country. So we should be learned from that. And we should be like to teach our next generation of the children. They should not be only asked the job. They should be like to try do something. Some problem will be solved. Entrepreneurs, the main objective is there. What problem they solved? We have the many problems in the society. If one problem take and it will be solved, that can be large number of population will be helpful, and that will be like of the entrepreneur will be become a success of the life. So I hope that they will be like to think in that level ground, how we can give the easy access of financial services. Till now, it is not that easy. Till now. If the one entrepreneur like to do, they can do. But our system, our regulation is not in favor of that. They are totally against it. They are showing it, I am like to say, in front of my son, they are showing it in the front of that, we are doing this, but really they are not supporting it on that. So that is, we are suffering on that. And second point, if we like to become an entrepreneur, we'll be creating a job. If we create the job, then our problem maximum will be like to solve. Then maybe the Acharya Prafulla Chandra will be say that he will be happy. Otherwise, from there, he will be say that unhappy. Whatever he done in that time, nobody learned from him, and nobody is like to carry it. So that should be like to push on that, and this type of the program will be encouraged a young group more. I hope that the less number of young group, more are senior citizen in this room. So it should be like to pass on these things to the young generation. They have the strength. They can be like to take the risk, because entrepreneur is a risk taker. They will take the risk, drive it, they will success. And then society will be like to become a good position of us. Thank you to all.
Thank you so much, sir. So I know it may sound a bit of outrageous, but for the sake of time, just one or two quick questions from the audience if you have. Yeah, please. Can you give him a hand mic, please?
Good afternoon, all dignitaries. As we are celebrating or discussing the legacy of Sir Prafulla Chandra Roy, and he is considered as one of the pioneer of Indian, not only Indian, the Asian pharmaceutical industry. But the current situation of pharmaceutical industry in his own state, West Bengal, the industries are struggling in terms of the global regulatory framework. So I would like to know from Dr. Lahiri, what is the present view of central government and Niti Aayog to uplift the pharmaceutical industry scenario in West Bengal? Thank you. Myself, Shaumo Bhattacharya.
Sir, if you please.
What are the challenges for the Indian pharmaceutical industry? Now, we know that often we are described as the pharmacy of the world. The generics we are doing very well. There are some challenges in the US market because of the recent Trump announcement. But the main challenge now is to grow from generics to high value products. In terms of quantity, we are doing very well, but in terms of value, we need to have more brands, branded products, and greater value. What is the way out? You have asked about West Bengal. I'll come to that later. I don't know much about West Bengal pharmaceutical industry, but we already have some giants. You've seen what Sun Pharma is doing. It's acquiring a company in the US. So some of our dark horses are running fast. And you know the production link incentive, PLI scheme applies to pharmaceuticals. And we are hopeful that that will also deliver the results. And there are quite a few entrepreneurs now, I've met many of them, who are actually biochemists. And they know what they're talking about. They have been in this business for a long time, worked for famous firms, and they're doing it. So when it comes to pharmaceuticals, I think as long as chemistry is doing well in India, biochemistry is doing well, our academic institutions are flourishing, and we have entrepreneurs like we have right now, more of them. I think pharmaceutical industry should be doing all right. That's one of our fast horses. So I have no doubt about the fact. I'm an eternal optimist. I think pharmaceuticals will do us proud. When it comes to West Bengal, I'm a bit different from the others. When people say they're doing business for the good of the country, I accept it. But businesses are run for profit. It's the businessman's dharma to make money. if he doesn't or she doesn't, then he's failing in her responsibility. Now, so if some industry is not doing well in a state, you can always ask the generic question, are the other industries doing well? It's the same reason for which one industry is not coming to the state, that the other industry is not coming. For the same reason why domestic entrepreneurs are not investing, that the foreign investor is not investing. So you should look at investment as a generic problem, not in terms of whether it's the Agarwals who are not investing or the Lahiris are not investing. If they're not investing, all of them are not investing for the same reason. So pharmaceuticals, I think, is Bengal had I remember Bengal Chemical also did not succeed.
Yes.
And as an aside, on a lighter note, I think we had the scientists, but we didn't have the IIMs. Acharya should have been helped by some of our MBAs as to how to run the industry, because he might have been a very great chemist. I don't know how good he was as a businessman. Businesses are a tough subject. But apart from Bengal Chemicals, there was Calcutta Chemicals, there was another Days Chemicals, quite a few of them in East India. And where are they? They're all gone.
Thank you, sir. Just one quick question. Yes, sir, please.
নমস্কার, আমি বাংলায় বলছি। গত প্রায় ৩০ বছর ধরে আমরা কয়েকজন মিলে একটা উদ্যোগের চেষ্টা করেছি যে একটা গাছও না কেটে কি করে কাঠের বিকল্প তৈরি করা যায়, এবং সেটা তৈরি করতে আমরা সক্ষম হয়েছি আমরা নিজেদেরই অর্থানুকূল্যে, যে বন্ধু বান্ধবদের কাছ থেকে নিয়ে সেটা আমরা বানিয়েছি। ন্যাশনাল টেস্ট হাউস থেকে টেস্ট রিপোর্ট বের করেছি, সরকারের কাছে আবেদন করেছি, সরকার সেটা শিডিউলে নিয়েছেন পশ্চিমবঙ্গ সরকার। কিন্তু কাজের সময় যে শর্তগুলো তারা আরোপ করেন তাতে আমাদের কাজটা করতে প্রায় পাচ্ছি না। ফলে যে জায়গাটা, যে ব্রিজটা দরকার, ডক্টর লাহিড়ী যেটা বললেন, আমরা বেসিক্যালি R&Dর লোক ছিলাম, কিন্তু R&D থেকে যখন বেঁচে থাকার জন্য কাজ করতে হচ্ছে, সেই কাজের জন্য যে ধরনের একটা প্রিন্স দ্বারকানাথের মতন একটা মন বা একটা জায়গা যেখানে পাশে এসে দাঁড়ানোর প্রয়োজন আছে, এবং আমরা কাজগুলো খুব সাকসেসের সঙ্গে করেছি। লোকেরা দেখে বলছেন, বাহ, দারুণ, অসাধারণ কাজ, আমি পরে কথা বলবো। এই যে বারংবার পরে কথা বলবো এবং তারপরে আর টেলিফোনটা ধরবো না, এই জায়গাটাকে স্যার আমরা কি করে কমব্যাট করব, যদি অনুগ্রহ করে যান। এই কথাটা আপনাদের তিনজনকেই আমাদের বলা, কিন্তু প্রফেসর লাহিড়ী বলাটা বললে আরো ভালো লাগবে, কারণ উনি খুব ভীষণ সুন্দর করে বলেন আর কি, আর উনি খুব রসিকও মানুষ।
ব্যবসার যেটা মুশকিল, এটা হয়তো একটা সংস্কৃতি তৈরি হয়ে গেছে। কেউ ব্যবসা করলেই বলে, হ্যাঁ করতে পারতাম, খুব ভালো, সরকার যদি কিছু পয়সা দিত। জামশেদজি টাটার কথা ভাবুন, ধীরুভাই আম্বানির কথা ভাবুন, এই যতগুলো ভালো বিজনেস আছে তাদের কথা ভাবুন। যখন শুরু করেছিল স্টার্ট আপস ছিল, সরকারি কোনো অনুদান না পেয়েই করেছে। তো আমি যদিও বানিয়া ইকোনমিস্ট, তো ইকোনমিস্টরা বানিয়া, আচ্ছা, তো আমি বিশ্বাস করি ওই টাকার যে গল্পটা না, যদি আমায় কেউ 1 কোটি টাকা দিত তাইলেই আমি দেখিয়ে দিতাম কি ব্যবসা হতে পারে, ওই যুক্তিটা খুব ঠিক নয়। সবগুলো বিজনেসে শুরু হয়েছে খুব ছোট থেকে, তারপর এখন আপনি যেটা বললেন, এই যে বিজনেস মডেলটা যে আপনার হবে উড সাবস্টিটিউট, ইজ ইট এ ভায়াবল বিজনেস, দ্যাটস দ্য কোয়েশ্চেন। আমার বাড়িতে যদি বলেন যে কাঠের জানলা না লাগিয়ে উড সাবস্টিটিউট দিয়ে বানাও, প্রথমেই আমি প্রশ্ন করব 1 কিউবিক ফিটের দাম কত, আমি সেগুন কাঠ কিনলে কত পাবো, শাল কাঠ কিনলে কি পাবো, আকাশমণি যদি কাঠ কিনি তাহলে কত দাম হবে। তো ইউ হ্যাভ টু বি কম্পিটিটিভ। আপনার দামটাই যদি কম্পিটিটিভ না হয় তাহলে একটা সমস্যা আছে। তবে এইটুকু আমি বলবো, আমিও ব্যবসা করার চেষ্টা করেছিলাম। আমি দুটো ফার্মার্স প্রডিউসার অর্গানাইজেশন, একটা শিডিউল কাস্ট মেয়েদের, একটা শিডিউল ট্রাইব মেয়েদের, ওরা মধু বানায়। মার্কেটিং ইজ এ মেজর প্রবলেম। এই মার্কেট লিঙ্ক আপ যেটা, একটা গ্রামের মেয়ে, সুন্দর মেয়ে, ও মধু বানিয়ে দেবে, মধু বানিয়ে আপনাকে দিয়ে দেবে, কিন্তু বিক্রিটা করবে কোথায়? এগ্রিগেটর যেটা থাকে, আর আপনি অ্যামাজন কিংবা কোনো, নাম বলছি না, কোনো সুপার মার্কেট চেইন যেগুলো আছে সেগুলোতে যদি দেন, খুব মুশকিল। আমি করেছি, কিন্তু তারপর অ্যামাজন ট্যামাজনে যে মার্জিন ওরা চার্জ করে তাতে সম্ভব নয়। তারপর কয়েক শিশি মধু, 400-500 শিশি মধু, সেইটা আমার একটা গ্রাম থেকে এনে ওইখানে পৌঁছে দেওয়া, তারপর তার ডেমারেজ আছে, ভেঙে গেলে একটা সমস্যা। তো আপনার যেটা, আমি জানি না, আপনার ইন্ডাস্ট্রি তো আমি জানি না, মেবি ইটস এ মার্কেটিং প্রবলেম, যে এর জন্য যে অ্যাডভার্টিজমেন্ট দরকার, এর জন্য যে কনজিউমার অ্যাওয়ারনেস তৈরি করা দরকার, দ্যাটস এ বিগ গেম। এটা সহজ নয়। তো সহজ পন্থা তো আপনি বললেনই, সরকার যদি কিছু পয়সা দিয়ে দেয় তাহলে হয়ে যাবে। আচ্ছা, তা সরকার যদি পয়সা না দেয় তাহলে কি করে করতে হবে সেটা ভাবতে।
I think this discussion has become very exciting. যাকে বলে জমে গেছে, কিন্তু for the sake of time and that, just okay, you can finish and then we will have to stop.
যে আমি কিন্তু অর্থ চাইনি, আমি হয়তো আমার নিজের বাচনের জন্য আপনাদের বোঝাতে পারিনি, কিন্তু আমরা যে অবস্থাতে এসে দাঁড়িয়েছি আর কি, আমরা অলরেডি অর্থ বিনিয়োগ করেছি, আমরা কাজ চাইছি, কাজ, এবং সেই কাজটা মার্কেটিং বেস না, এটা অলরেডি বহু মানুষের কাছে পৌঁছেছে। যেটা অসুবিধা হচ্ছে, কাঠের ব্যবসা যারা করেন তারা এই কাঠের বিকল্পটিকে আনতে দিতে চান না, কারণ এটা একটা পরিবেশ বান্ধব, সম্পূর্ণ একটা গ্রিন মেটেরিয়াল, পুরোটা গ্রিন মেটেরিয়াল, এবং এই মানে গ্রিন বলতে যতখানি বোঝায়, ইভেন গ্রিন বিল্ডিং এর জন্য যে যা যা লাগে সেটা আমরা তৈরি করেছি, কিন্তু আমরা সেভাবে।
আমি তাহলে এই জায়গাটা একটু আমি শেয়ার করতে পারি, যে জায়গাটা, সেটা হলো যে এন্টারপ্রেনিয়ার সবসময় রিস্ক নিয়ে থাকে, এবং আমরা এটা দেখেছি আমার লাইফতেও। and I go to first bank to asking the loan, no bank given. So finally I went to one development organization to take a loan. First day I requested to sit to share my idea. 45 minutes I have been standing behind the chair, not given the permission. That organization given me the fund first after 18 months. And all these 18 months, each week, 3 times, I am standing behind the chair and discussed. First point on that, the entrepreneurs which I, from my life, see that always a need on that passion. হাল ছেড়ে না দেওয়া, এটা হলো একটা বড় জায়গা। দ্বিতীয়ত যে কাজটা আমি করি, সে কাজটা মানি লেন্ডারের কাজ। আওয়ার কম্পিটিটর এজ এ গ্রামের যারা মানি লেন্ডার আছে তারা মহাজন, গ্রামে ঢুকতে দেয় না, আমাকে দাঁড় করিয়ে রাখলো, ডোন্ট এন্টার টু আওয়ার ভিলেজ, আমাদের বাড়ি গ্রামের ভিতরে আপনি ঢুকবেন না। কেন ঢুকছেন বলো? উই আর ফেস লট অফ প্রবলেম অন দ্যাট। একটা ঘটনা আমি বলি, যে এটা হলো চাকদা বিষ্ণুপুরে, একটা গ্রামে ঢুকছি, দোকানের সামনে দিয়ে দাঁড় করালো, বলছে যে কোথায় যাবেন? যে গ্রামটাতে। কেন? আপনি এই মানুষগুলোর টাকা দিচ্ছেন, এগুলো তো আমরা এতদিন দিয়ে খাচ্ছিলাম, আপনি আবার এর মধ্যে কেন ঢুকলেন? তখন কোনো বুদ্ধি না পেয়ে দোকানের সামনে দাঁড়ানো, উনি সিগারেট খাচ্ছেন আর আমাকে বলছেন, আমি যে দেখুন আপনি বিড়ি খাবেন? কেন? আমি সিগারেট খাই, বিড়ি খাবো কেন? আমি বিড়ি খাই, তার মানে আমি যাকে লোন দিই একে আপনি দেবেন না, সে আপনার থেকে লোন নেবে না, আপনি তো সিগারেট খান একটু উপরের লেভেলের। এক্ষুনি ও আচ্ছা তাই নাকি, খুব নিচে না, যান যান তারপরে যান। ইটস অ্যান অল আর্ট টেকনিক অল দ্য ওয়ে, মানে ফেস করতেই হবে এটা।
এবার বুঝতে পারছেন চন্দ্রশেখর ঘোষ কিরম বুদ্ধিমান লোক।
Okay, so once again, for the sake of time and that Dr. Lahiri has to catch a flight, we have to close this very gradually being exciting discussion. I sincerely hope we will have these trio in future also for similar discussions. Let us put our hands together to heartily thank them for being a part of this panel discussion. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here. Thank you, everyone, online and offline. So this also ends this whole program here. Thank you, everyone. And sorry, please stay back. Sorry. I apologize. The program will end with the national song and the national anthem. So we will all stand up and for that honor.
So just, so this will be a bit different. Visual হবে. So we'll be showing the national song, the lyrics too. And the first, the Vande Mataram, a very outstanding rendition of Vande Mataram. We'll go back to it. That is by Dilip Kumar Roy. And when you listen, you see the combination of Shakti and Bhakti in this rendition, which only probably Dilip Kumar Roy could have done, because he was not only a singer but as well as a sadhak. And you will also have the picture of Bharat Mata by Abanindranath Thakur, who used to stay in ISI, and you will have pictures of both Bankim Chandra, Dilip Rai and Abanindranath. And also there's a